This is Mr. Bo from MrBoEnglish.com. We've been working on completing the square in Khan Academy, and this is our this is our third video in the series, and this is where we're going to finish off. We're going to finish the lesson on completing the square. The first two videos were setting the foundation, getting us ready, learning the basics of how to do it. And this is the one where we're going to get a little bit more difficult. We're going to have some fractions. We're going to have some leading coefficients, have to do some different stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's look at our first problem. It says rewrite the equation by completing the square. So x squared plus, 7x plus 12 is equal to 0. And we're going to take our x coefficient, which we'll call b, and we're going to divide that by 2 and then square it. And that gives us 49/4. So we need for our constant here, we need 49/4. And I'm going to add 49/4 and I'm going to subtract 49/4 again. Whoops. Still have that plus 12. Okay. So we added this and then subtract this, plus 49/4 minus 49/4 is altogether 0. So we added 0, we didn't change anything. But now we're going to group these together, and when we group those together, we'll get that. And we're going to have 12. 12 is 48/4, because 4 times 12 is 48, minus 49/4 equals 0. And that's going to be, after we do that, that's going to be minus 1/4 equals 0. So we've got this, still got this x plus 7/2 squared. I'm going to add 1/4 to both sides. And we are going to end up with x plus 7/2 squared equals 1/4. And we'll go ahead and put that in here. If you're on an iPad or mobile or something, you'll use the pop-up that comes with this. All right, let's look at problem number 2. Again, rewrite the function by completing the square. So our function, f of x, is equal to 4x squared plus 12x plus 9. And this is the first time we've seen a leading coefficient. And internet. This is the first time we've seen the leading coefficient, and there are a couple of ways to do it. This one is a perfect square, so we could say it's 2x, but we're gonna use this method where we just kind of pull it out, and I'm gonna use both parts inside here. Okay, I'm gonna leave this 9 outside. That's going to be plus 3x, because 12 divided by 4 is 3x. So I'm factoring out 4 plus something, I don't know what. And then I'm going to need to subtract something out, which is the same thing, and plus 9. So this is the same thing we normally do, but this 4 makes it a little bit more complicated. So let's go back over here, and the number we need is 3/2 squared. So we take that 3, divide by 2, square it, and that's 9/4. So I add 9/4. And I'm going to subtract something, but it's not 9/4 because this is actually 9/4 times 4, so it's subtract 9. So this 9 minus 9 is going to be 0. So we're going to end up with 4 times x plus 3/2 squared. So our f of x is equal to 4 times x plus 3/2 squared. And this looks like our vertex form. So I know my vertex for this parabola, if I wanted to graph it, is at, that's 1, that's 2, it's at 3/2, and plus a 0 over here, and it's 4, it opens up, and it's really narrow, so it's going to look something like that. Still don't have internet, huh? Hold on. There we go. Okay, and we're the same. So I've got a 4 over here, and I've got 3/2, and outside I have 0. Okay, so let's try it one more time. Rewrite the equation by completing the square. So my equation is 2x squared minus 11x plus 14 equals 0. And I'm going to take this part right here, I'm going to separate it off, and we're going to pull out the 2, factor out the 2. So x squared minus 11 divided by 2 is 11/2 x, and we're going to need plus something, and then outside here I'm going to need minus something. Plus 14 equals 0. And like before, these are not going to be the same number, but they need to be the same value if we include multiply by 2. So where do we find this? Let's see. We need 11/2 divided by 2 squared is equal to 11/4 squared, which is 121/16. So we need 121/16 here, and plus 121/16 times 2 is 121/8, so minus 121/8. 121 times 16 times 2 minus the same thing, okay, is equal to 0. And then we are going to put these together. X minus 11/4 squared, and we're going to have minus 121/8 plus, I need to convert this to 8, and times 8 is 32. 100, is that right? 32, 8, 100, 12, 112, 8, and this is going to be negative 9/8. And I'm going to add negative 9/8. I'm going to add 9/8 to both sides. And in the end, I'm going to get this 2x minus 11/4 squared is equal to 9/8. Okay, So now it's time to enter this, and it has an error here somewhere. Oh, gonna divide by 2. There we go. All right, so I'm gonna divide both sides by 2, and we're gonna get 16ths here. So there we go. Negative 11 fourths, 9 16ths. So just to explain, the numbers are always different for con, so it's not like I can look at it and know what the problem is going to be beforehand. So every time we do these sets, they look a little bit different. So, and here's our last one. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. It says rewrite the function by completing the square. So we have, that is not f, that is g. We have g of x is equal to 4x squared minus 28x plus 49. And I'm going to take this part and put it over here. I want to factor out the 4, so x squared. Negative 28 divided by 4 is negative 7, so minus 7x. I'm going to need to add a constant, and then I'm going to need to subtract the same thing. And 49. We can do it a different way. You can think about pulling it out, or adding to both sides if there's a if it's an equation and not a function. There's lots of ways to do it. I teach my kids to do it this way if they don't know what else to do, because it's kind of hard to mess it up. So we want to divide by 2 and then square. So now we have 49 fourths. All right, so we're going to need a constant of 49 fourths, and we're going to need to minus 49 fourths times 4. So we're going to need to minus 49, and those two cancel out. So in the end, we're going to have g of x is equal to x, and here's our constant squared. And I forgot the 4. Really nice to have the 4, Dan. Thanks, Mr. Bo. Okay. We'll go ahead and put it in here. All right, there we go. So that's how you do completing the square. We've got some leading coefficients. We started using fractions. Things got a little bit more difficult, but they're still doable. And we jump from the first two are like here, and then the next one is up here. So there's a big jump, and it may take you more than one time. And the secret to using con and getting really good at math using con is don't 75% is not good enough, and 50% is not good enough. You need to make sure you keep doing those practices until you get 100. Get 100 on those practices, and then move on. And if you're not getting 100, or if you feel like you're guessing, you got 100, you got 100, but it was lucky, or you got 100 because you remember all the answers, you need to go back and get that foundation stronger. So we kind of jumped up here, and there's a little bit of space here, so you may have to do it 2 or 3 times. Some of my students go through and do these practices 6, 7, 8 times to make sure they get 100. But what happens? They get a really good foundation, and then when we go to the next step, they really understand what they're doing. So I want to tell you, don't be afraid to do this one several times. And if the first time doesn't look very good, don't just say, well, whatever, 50 is okay. Go ahead and do it again 2, 3, 4 times until you get that 100. All right, and if you need any extra help, get a hold of us at mrboenglish.com. Mr. Bo English รับสอนนักเรียนตั้งแต่ป .3 ขึ้นไปทางอินเทอร์เน็ตในสไตล์ EP ครับผู้สนใจช่วยติดต่อครูแจงหรือไปเว็บไซต์ที่ www.mrboenglish.com